Guys, a couple of interesting and long episodes are starting up right now. Interesting because we are going to set up WebSocket within the client side. Server side is already there available, but I'll be taking up a separate tutorial on how to create Node.js WebSocket server later. But right now, whatever we have is a plain simple server which does not do much validation. It accepts for connecting, and after that logging in, it just accepts a username and a password, not the password, username and email to just set up a WebSocket connection, and then users can join in at that point. So that's how it is being set up right now. So I'm going to start creating that bit right now because we are at a stage where we can start working with the login. Like I can just start working with the login. As soon as I hit login, I can start connecting to the WebSocket and start joining to um, chat rooms. All chat rooms, I just need to do one join to the chat rooms. From there I can connect to multiple chat rooms. So that's how it's going to work. It's just going to connect to one WebSocket connection and then set up the chat. So I don't know how far we can go today, but it's going to be pretty couple of two long sessions. So let's just get started with the first one, which is setting up this WebSocket connection and joining from there. So let's start with what do we have right now. We have this processing enable, login is enabled, and from there we need to set up use cases where we can start joining into the WebSockets. So before that, let's set up some of the frameworks which are right now required. We have the shared frameworks available, but we need to start adding use cases interactors so that we can connect to the WebSocket server. So first thing first, let me create a new target, and I'm just going to call it as account interactor. Sorry, I'm creating a use cases layer, so I'm just going to call it use cases as the target. I'm adding it now. So new target is created called use cases. I'm just going to keep it there itself, and then use cases is ready. I can start adding interactors required for the use cases. First interactor which I am going to create is called account interactor. This is where every account related transactions are going to happen. All the use cases will be handled from here. So account interactor I'm going to create within the use cases. So that's done. Create a class called account interactor. It's just a plain interactor, public, because it's within a framework and we are not expecting it to be subclass, so I'm just keeping it as final. That's it. So this is going to now define some functions. So first function I might want to do is, first thing is login. I need to basically I want to log in. So sign up and all I'll come back later, but let's just start with the basic functionality to use the login function, which we are going to use using the WebSocket. So I'm just going to create account interactor function called login. I'm going to keep this extension as public so that it is available for all functions. So login is going to accept two things: username and password. Not password but email. It does not do any authentication authorization. It's just a plain simple login feature. It does not do anything more than that. And it's gonna okay, login. I'm gonna add RX Swift to this because I need to use RX Swift here. So I'm gonna include link libraries, add files. We already have included RX Swift in the previous episode. So I'm going to include RX Swift, maybe RX Relay as well. Sorry, and Carthage build RX Relay, open RX Relay and RX Swift included. I might also need models because models is something. Oh, we don't have models. We need to create something called as a framework called models, where we are going to save every transaction responses which is going to come back to us. So maybe I can also create that target right now called uh, models. I thought I already had it. Models. That's also created models here. So one of the things that I'm expecting in the model is the user object, which is nothing but plain user within the models. I'm creating that. I don't expect much more than username and email currently. Public mod struct model and public let you email, which might work as a unique identifier for this. Later if we add more things, let's see at that point. And username, I'm gonna have a public init for this. Use email and username, self.email, self.username. That's it. That's my model. It's done. Public user is available now. So authentication as such, it's just going to be a single I need to import RX Swift single empty. I don't expect anything to be returned on login. So for the time being, I'm just gonna return dot never. Nothing is returned. So just that I don't avoid compilation error, but implementation is going to come here, where I'm going to set up the conference chat here. The WebSocket connection is going to happen from here. As soon as I log in, user gets user joins the WebSocket chat, and he can join any number of rooms from there. So he's just joining the chat session. From there he can join any number of rooms. So this is my account interactor, which is going to just log in, and then from there things are going to happen. So let me now create a service layer where every magic is going to happen. I'm going to call it as target. I can call it as chat room service. What's a good name for this? Or maybe specific to the app name. Let's connect service can be. Let's connect service. All of the services are going to be established from here. So that's my service target, and I'm going to create a conference chat or maybe a chat service from there. This is going to be a chat room service. Maybe I can call it as, what do we call it? Chat room service, because this is more like or maybe chat room WebSocket service, because I'm going to establish a chat room WebSocket service from here. So let's connect service, chat room WebSocket service, create that file. I can create a class chat room WebSocket service. Click. We are not done much here yet, so it's just going to implement a chat room WebSocket service. And let's also implement a protocol specific to this. I'm gonna create a web protocol. Maybe I can call it as chat room WebSocket API. So this is what is going to be implemented in this chat room WebSocket service. So some of the functions I might need here is, at least I need to you have a function called for login. So I'm just going to use the same function login using, right now I'm not passing any model object, but I'm just passing directly username and email so that my existing workflow does not break. I'm just gonna keep it as function login. This is what this is going to be implemented here in the chat room WebSocket service, public extension, and this should implement, I think we can have it as an extension. Let this protocol implemented. Let's keep this protocol as public because this is what will be exposed to the other layers. So this will in turn will trigger to implement this function called login now. So we have the login function base structure ready. We need to actually make the WebSocket calls from here. That's what we are gonna go do in a bit. So what did we do? We created use cases layer. We created a models target where we have this user object. We have the WebSocket let's connect service, WebSocket service. These much we have done. So as soon as the log function gets called, it triggers a call to the WebSocket layer. So that's what we're gonna do in a bit. So maybe even before doing all these, let's include the dependencies to our consumer, which is right now the login layer. The login is what is going to actually do the login feature, right? So we need to have this use case available to the login side. So let's create that. We don't have any use case yet defined. We just have the use cases like this, but we don't have any functions defined. Let's do that. Let me go to my presenter and I need to define a function called login, which is nothing but the interactor function which we created right now, which will accept username and email as the parameters, and it's going to return a single of type void. And tuple cannot be single object, so I'm including one more. So that's my login. So it's instantly going to drive an error in my builder because now this use case is expecting a parameter. So let's include that. So we defined an interactor right now. So through that interactor, we need to pass that login function. So for instantiating the so that I can reuse the interactors, I have created something called as a use cases factory. So I'm going to create that right now. So let me create that. Within the use case, I'm going to create a class called use cases factory. Nothing but it just gives out, it's not a factory pattern now, it's just that it's kind of a factory which will give you all the instances of the use cases. Maybe I can even call it as use cases instances or something, but I'm just keeping it as use cases factory and create that. It's a class use cases factory public final, not subclassing it, and then I am going to create instances of or at least right now we just have one instance of chat room, at least the account interactor. So I'm going to create a public static, I think singleton. I already have this snippet which will let me create instead of calling it shared, I might call it as account interactor, accounts interactor, I'm calling it, and then I'm gonna have a instance of account interactor. It's not a singleton, but account interactor. Creating this singleton object here itself. It's right now not accepting anything, but we need to pass something for so that it can consume that. We don't have any implementation here, it's never, but actually it needs an implementation. So I'm going to init this one using using the service. I'm just gonna call it as chat room service. So which whatever we created right now, chat room. Or what do we call it? What did we call it? We called it chat room WebSocket service. Chat room WebSocket API. I'm gonna call it as chat room WebSocket API. It's not included in use cases. That's why it's giving that. Let's go back to use cases. Include that connect service. That's included now. The dependency within the dependencies. Now it should be available for import. Chat rooms. Let's connect import. Let's connect service. Now we should be able to get that API. So maybe we can call this as WebSocket service instead of chat room. WebSocket service. Let me have a private instance of it. Is exposed through this protocol. So we can have that instance available. Self dot WebSocket service is WebSocket service. So now our interactor is going to trigger an error, not here at least. So this is right now asking for, okay, we'll come back to that. Let's just build our use cases so that we don't get all the errors. It's just going to give me this error. It's accepting WebSocket service. So we need to pass as instance of WebSocket service. So maybe we can create private let WebSocket service equal to chat room. We don't have that. We need the reference import. Let's connect service. Chat room WebSocket service. Initializer, we don't have a public init. Let's create that. Init. It's going to accept some of the things later. So let's do that once that is available. So this one is what we pass to the, because this is already implementing the WebSocket service. We cannot use instance method. Okay, we need to have a static version of it. So WebSocket service, chat room web service. Now this is fine. So it's accepting the interactor, or account interactor is accepting chat room web service. So this is dependency injection, passing the instance using the protocol, and that's available, right? So instead of this, now you can actually get rid of that for the login. Maybe I can just, what do we have? Self dot login, self dot WebSocket service dot login. It does not return anything, so we can maybe just keep it as pass the username and the email. So that's only two things which it does. And I'm just going to keep it as never, but some things are going to happen. Once the login has happened, we can change something here and then do stuff. So I'm just going to keep it as never. So whenever a login call happens, it's going to call this login, and the WebSocket service is going to respond back with a response saying the login has succeeded. So that response is what we'll capture and then send it back as a response to this function. That will happen in a bit. I'll show you how. So we will see what happens when you do a login to the WebSocket first thing before even checking what is the response. So I can show you the logs of what goes on within my Heroku server. So let's do that. Let's do that in a bit. Before that, let's do this. So we need to now have, we don't have the, okay, let's figure out other things. We still get this error here because we don't have this use cases here. So we need to import use cases to the module which is interested in right now, like this one. So let's import that use case. So that's, now we can build it. So import, you can use cases here. So now, okay, it's compiled with 13.2. I'm going to keep it as 13. So three things, these are the three things we added right now. And I can maybe, it does not let me go to general. Together I cannot do it. Strange. General 13, 13 and 13. So you can even keep it at 11 for your project. I'm just keeping it at 13. Now it's giving me 13, so I can get the auth interactors or the account interactors instance here right now. So I can just call use cases factory dot okay, need to have that from use cases function. Should be, it's a public class use cases, and this is a public. Okay, we need to make this public static because this is what the instance we are passing to the other layer. So I can just call now the accounts interactor is right now available. So anywhere you need account interactor, you can access it through this use cases factory, not this thing. So accounts interactor, I need now the login. Account interactor has a login function. So this should match, that closure should match whatever we need right now. So it does not give you any kind of error. So login is now available for execution. So it will come until here. Let's keep our breakpoints. Let's come here. I'm gonna print login request received for username and email, just for verification whether things are properly working or not. It should reach at least the service layer. After that, we make the emit call to the WebSocket layer. So let's build that part, because once the validation is complete, which is right now within chat login presenter. So we have the enable function, but after do we have the button? We just have the enable, but we also need the tap event. So let's bring in that as well. So where is my presenter? Needs to have within the input, we need to have a login tap event. So let's go back to my chat room login view controller and login function. So this is my login driver, which does not ask for any parameter. It's just a void function. It's just that it will trigger that login button event. So I can just say login button dot rx dot tap. I'm just going to convert it as a driver. That's it. So once I tap on that button, the presenter is going to receive this tap event, and presenter already knows about, because through the input I have already passed these username as well as the email. So I can use that to make that request. So how does that work? Let me show you. So tap event is received, so I'm going to process it within the process function. Self dot input dot login function. Tap is received here. I'm gonna with latest from, I'm gonna combine these two. Combine driver dot combine latest. So I'm gonna combine these guys, the username value and the password value. So here I'm interested more in the values instead of the boolean, so I'm just going to use the values. So self dot input dot username and self dot input dot email. So these two values I'm going to use. Is it visible? I'm going to increase the font size. Okay, so with latest from tab driver, with latest from this, and I'm gonna say convert it into an observable, because otherwise you cannot do a flat map or something. Flat map is nothing but transforming observable values into a different observable. So in this case, whatever I'm gonna do is I'm gonna convert, or at least I'm gonna consume this username and email values on tap of the login button. I'm getting the latest values of email and username, and then I'm gonna make the call to the login use case function. So I'm gonna access the login function here. So do I have, yes, we have the use cases instance. So I'm gonna flat map this one. So I have the use cases. I'm just gonna use that. Okay, so we need both these values. It should be available here. Let's see. So we should be getting the username and email values here. Login latest from this. Let's see. Use cases is not even available. Login, pass, username and email. That's fine. So see, it's accepting both these values. So even we don't even need to pass these, but it's fine that you can access these values and then pass it to the login function. So this is flat map is nothing but it's accepting these two observables values of these, and then using that to transform it into a different observable. Whenever you call a login function, it is actually returning you a single another kind of a observable, an empty signal. It's going to send back as soon as the login completes. So that's what this does. Uses these values, send it to the login function, and then login in turn returns another kind of observable, which is an empty single value observable. So that's what is going to happen. I'm going to say I'm gonna convert it back into a driver, because I need, if I have to send it back to the from the presenter to the UI saying okay my job is done, then it's better that you convert it back to an driver from an observable, because driver will never error out and it will always remain in the main thread, which is what is required for user interaction or user interface things. So I'm gonna try with nothing right now. If there is, you can even handle errors. Like say, I don't think our login is right now going to fail. So that is the case. That is the because of that. I'm just not gonna handle the error right now. So otherwise, you can even drive as driver. You can even handle error at this point. Let's say if there is an error during login, it's coming up in the future anyway. Handle I'll add some validation during login, because we can even do the login, the regular HTTP login using let's say if you are adding one more parameter for password, then we need to authorize it either with the HTTP server. I'm not sure how to do it with the WebSocket. I think we can even do it with WebSockets, but then let's do it the other way, where I can do the regular HTTP um, auth authorization authentication, and then once I get the response call back, I use that to join um, join a chat session or something. So that we can take up pretty soon in enough. So until then, I'm gonna use this dispose by bag. I don't think there will be a bag, right? So I'm gonna add a bag, private let bag, dispose bag. Dispose bag, as explained earlier, is for memory allocation management for observers, which will keep it all the observers within a dispose bag, and then later once this whole stage class is uh, deallocated, it will start deallocating the observers as well for better memory management. So we have this right now function to make the login call. I think it should now give you that log. After that, we will set up the WebSocket session. Let's see what happens now. let's keep this visible. So it's already started giving that validation part. It's a variable. See, it's a login request received for username. So it's giving that whatever we have at the right at this send, it's printing this one. So this is where we are gonna log in to the WebSocket. So we have received these two values. Wish and wish at the gmail.com is received here. Now we will use this to set up the login session. We are gonna set up the WebSocket right now. So let's get started with that.